We're going to talk about GEDCOM again today. I'm going to show you that Treebard is now able to import GEDCOM files into a Uniged's database. Treebard will import good GEDCOM files, and the ones that have a lot of bad lines, it's not really our job to fix GEDCOM or to fix anybody's GEDCOM. However, we're going to show you at least one GEDCOM validator so that if you do have a problem with a GEDCOM file, you don't have to read it line by line, try to figure out what's wrong. You can put it into a GEDCOM validator, and then that's like a software tool that'll tell you what's wrong with the GEDCOM. In somebody's opinion, every GEDCOM validator is different, so you might want to try more than one. And if you want a GEDCOM validator, the links to them are available on the GEDCOM version 5.5.5 specifications, which is put out by Tamara Jones and some other people. It's not put out by LDS, it's put out by somebody else, but it's based on the GEDCOM 5.5.1, which is put out by LDS, and it is compatible with 5.5.1. So you just browse and find your file. Anyway, we'll do some validator stuff a little bit later. The key parts of my GEDCOM import program are this, which is the main module that starts everything, runs everything in Treebard. And here's your import, GEDCOM import.py, GEDCOM export.py, and this has, some SQL queries and a few functions for dates and some headers that I didn't want to have mixed up into the rest of the code, and just a few constants that are needed over here, which we import to GEDCOM import and GEDCOM export. I have spent approximately 5 or 6 months doing very little except GEDCOM, and most of that time was on the GEDCOM import program. That's about almost 3,000 lines of code. Then I worked on GEDCOM export. It only took about 2 weeks to get it going. It was a lot easier because you're starting from your own structure and then moving it to the GEDCOM structure. Instead of with the import, you're starting with the GEDCOM structure and somehow trying to make that square peg fit in your round hole. The one thing that I've done is I've gone to different programs, which I have trial versions of, and one that I have the real version of, actually 2 that I have, 3 counting Gramps, which is free. And I've gotten their sample tree GEDCOM. Let's sort by type here. There are several GEDCOM files in here, some of which I made with Treebard, but this comes from Gramps. They have a sample tree, so I opened their sample tree and I exported it as GEDCOM. Kith and Kin, Legacy. This is a tree that I made myself, one thing at a time, in GenBox, and then exported it, and that one works. It's a little bit longer. Sample tree, that's the one I made in Treebard. Exported it and re-imported it, exported, import, back and forth, and continues to work, so that's good. AgeLong, that's a GenieWare. Onenblot, that's a GenieWare. And some of these don't have sample trees, so what I did is I took this one, which I made, and I imported it into whatever the tree was that didn't have their own sample tree database. For example, RootsMagic. Say I imported RATeal into RootsMagic and then exported it as a GEDCOM. So now I got that. I'm just going to demonstrate that Treebard is now able to import GEDCOM, and I might show you export GEDCOM. In Treebard, you have to do certain things. If you're going to delete a file outside of Treebard, then which you shouldn't do. But in case there's anybody out there who's wanting to write their own GenieWare, I'm going to show you how you clean stuff up in a file folder structure if you want to delete a bunch of test family trees by hand instead of deleting them one at a time in Treebard. Here's the main folder of Treebard GPS. Here's the data where each one of these folders, except for settings, is a family tree. and I click on any of these, see there's your family tree database and there's the images. You can go in here and delete these, but then you got to do something special in the database manually, you know, in the SQLite. So you can delete them if you want, but you got to know what you're doing or you're going to mess something up. I don't want to delete my sample database. There it is. There's my sample tree. Okay, you can delete all the rest. Everything that needs to be there is the settings and the sample tree. In settings, we got a default new tree. This is a model used to make a new tree. AppWide is a database that runs different stuff. Okay, so I just deleted a whole bunch of family trees. Now, in order to keep from getting in trouble with Treebard, I gotta open up that AppWide that I just showed you. Open up the console, turn on SQLite tool, just like that, and then type the path for AppWide database, which has the same effect on every tree. Make sure I'm in the right place. Yep. Make sure I can see the column headers. Make sure it's actually legible. Select everything from family tree. There's all those trees I just deleted. You see what kind of trouble we're in? Because I did not delete the trees from within Treebard. I deleted them from within Windows. So what you got to do now is you got to delete carefully. Delete from, anytime you type delete in the SQLite, you got to be careful and filter out what you don't want to delete. Delete from family tree where family tree ID, that's the ones on the left here, because you see number 1. That's the sample tree. I don't want to delete that. Where family tree ID is greater than 1. Now if I run that select query again, we've only got 1. There's one other thing we got to do. Select everything from closing state. This is something that changes when you open and close trees. This is recent files, starting here and going all the way to there because there's a bunch of them. Got to change that back to sample tree. And the prior family tree ID, we deleted. There's no more 46. Good, change that back to 1. That's just sample tree. Okay, so we're gonna update closing state set. We need to do this in a tuple because there's 2 columns we're going to change. Prior family tree ID and recent files, and then put the new values in another tuple. There's going to be 2 of them. One is a foreign key, so a foreign key for the family tree. Prior family tree ID is sample tree, and this is the user's title of the tree, sample tree. And then I won't have a problem when I start over here in Treebard. If I was to click this big picture, which I just did with the space button, since the big picture is automatically highlighted, it just opens up the sample tree because we told the database that the sample tree was the last thing that had been opened. Well, that was exciting. Now let's get on with the program. Now I just closed the family tree. I didn't close Treebard. Treebard is still open. We'll go in here and we're going to get age long because it's very small. We're going to start with that and we're going to call it age long 01. You have to have a unique name. You can't name it something that already exists. We start the process of importing by upgrading the GEDCOM places. All England highlights when you click one of them, and then we're saying these are all the same place. Same goes for London. These are all the same place. This is simple. Okay. Add data to the new tree. It already read the file several times in those milliseconds, you know. What it's doing now that's taking time is it's putting all the data into the database. Import is finished. All the buttons are grayed out. If you want to import another GEDCOM, you have to close the whole program and open it up again. Now we're going to open a tree. You can't just go like that. First you got to say which tree you want to open. There's only 2. This is, I believe these are the Spencer family. I believe they're related to the Royals in some way in the United Kingdom. And this shows that we just imported stuff. We imported dates, events, people, Gender, change it to a different person. Gender, children, parents. I suppose we probably in imported places too. Let's see. Is it, oh, there's a place called England. Let's go over here to the place tab, see if we imported. Oh, look at that. Let's make England the current place. Okay. Let's do on and block. Space bar? No. Enter. Enter. Good. Give it a name. Call this on and block. That's a German company. 01 tab. Now hit space bar on the OK. Okay, start the import process. Upgrade GEDCOM places. All right, now we got a few more places in this one. There's no duplicate places in here. Each one is used only once or something. So you can just go like that and just go like that and you're done. It's 43:35. That took exactly 58 seconds. There were no errors. This is Python. It'll show you if there's any errors. Open it up. Here's the name of the tree, just like we named it. And here's your people. These are going to be some German names. You change to different people. There's spouses or partners, whatever you want to call them. Children, dates, events, places. Let's go over here. Well, there's Dortmund. That's good enough. I just wanted to make sure it works. Now, see the current nested place is now Dortmund, and look, there's the latitude and longitude. So in on and block, they have kind of an odd way of doing their place, their latitude and their longitude, so we had to work around that. You can now change it to Balva. I'll bet they got some latitude and longitude for Balva. That's in the GEDCOM. Let's do another one. And after we do some that work, I'll show you one that doesn't work. I'll show you why. That's family historian. This is their sample tree. Go FH01. Oh, they got a lot more places, you see. Now this starts to get interesting. England. Now, if they had something here that said UK, maybe you'd want to click that too. You hold down the control button and click UK. If they had USA and United States of America, you'd want to, see, I didn't keep England. You'd want to click USA, so all the USA's highlight, and then you'd want to hold down control button and click United States of America, and then they'd all be highlighted, and then you hit next, and what that does is it makes USA and United States of America the same place. Give them the same ID number, but two different names. Okay, that's the purpose of that. But we're taking it easy because it takes a little bit of time. Now, when I say I mean we're going to take it easy, I mean we're going to say that all these places are different places, which isn't true. That's going to make a whole bunch of different Englands, a whole bunch of different USAs. We don't want to do that normally, but it saves time right now since we don't doing places right now. 50:45. I'll see you in a little bit. That took 3 minutes and 16 seconds. Now let me show you how long those files are so you got some idea what we're talking about. 4,118 lines. Of course, we didn't import all this stuff because some of it we don't care about. Some of it is what I call vendor cruft, where the vendor is making all kinds of custom tags that they're using for some sort of internal purpose. I'm not doing custom tags right now. This is a good tag, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just not going to do it right now because I can input that stuff in Treebard and it's easy and fast and fun, whereas writing code to deal with a different set of custom tags for each vendor, yeah, well, there's only one of me. You know what I'm talking about? And that's a big problem with GEDCOM is that it says, here's the specifications, and then just do what you want. Just make some custom tags because, you know, you shouldn't, but go ahead. Yeah, well, it doesn't work. That's not a specification. That's a do what you want. What's today? 111 exceptions logs. Okay, there's the one we just made. This is the exceptions log for the family historian we just imported. This is going to have all your custom tags. It's going to list what record they're in, and then it's going to show you all the custom tags and their subordinates. Here's what I mean by vendor cruft. That is, I don't have any idea. You can look it up on their website or on their blog or forum or something. And I've got a link to that somewhere on one of my videos. You can put this stuff into Treebard at your leisure, or you can ignore it. It's up to you. This is vendor, I call this vendor cruft. I'm not saying it's not useful to family historian. Obviously it's useful to them, but I disagree with using GEDCOM to store it. They should be using a database to store everything and not storing anything in a GEDCOM file. GEDCOM should be used to transfer data from one program to a different program. That's what it's for. It's not for storing vendor specific stuff for use within any given, vendor's Geneware. These are all vendor tags. They don't put a line underneath all of them. I had to get rid of all this stuff because there's only one of me, and I'm not going to figure out all of those things. Not in my lifetime. I'm almost 68 years old. I want to get on back to doing genealogy. That's why I made Treebard, so I can do genealogy. Imprecise family events, there aren't any here. That's when GEDCOM pretends that a residence event or an immigration event is a family event, and they're pretending that everybody in the family lives at a certain place at a certain time, which is not true. So when you have those presented in the GEDCOM as family events instead of individual events, then Treebard says, okay, well, you're going to put those things in as individual events, and here's what they are. I had a problem with Rust Magic and Legacy. Let's start with Legacy. All right, we're going to use the validator. Choose your file, open, and that's all you have to do. When this changes to Legacy, it's done. It's done, okay? It's going to tell you some stuff that we're not worried about. It tells you the version and the character set or encoding or whatever it's called. I wished I understood that better. It's going to give you some statistics. How many user-defined tags out of 17,000 lines in the GEDCOM file? There's 644 custom tags. And these are the problems. Oh, this is Legacy. That's right. Okay. These are the problems, and some of these are pretty bad problems. Some of them are Legacy's fault. I don't want to say that in a nasty way, but as far as I can tell, the GEDCOM file is just plain wrong. For example, this is a GEDCOM tag MEDI, which it is a GEDCOM tag, but they're using it subordinate to the source tag, which is wrong. It's not allowed, and it's meaningless to GEDCOM. It's not what, well, everything's meaningless to GEDCOM. GEDCOM is not software. It's just a text file. It can't enforce anything. That's why we have to use this validator. Okay, so there's all these MEDI tags. You're supposed to have a occupation listed for the occupation tag, and there isn't one. This is the wrong text for a date. You're supposed to say, you could say about 72, before, after, something like that. Estimated, but you can't say by. Map is used in the wrong place. So there's all these reasons. See, now that's not a standard way of showing a range of dates. You're supposed to do it a certain way according to the specifications. Resi is not supposed to have anything after it. Underneath file, you're supposed to have form. File is media. It's under object, multimedia object. And then underneath the file name, see, this file and the former and are just completely wrong. I'll just show it to you. I can't describe it. Hang on, I'm going to open it up and I'll show it to you instead of trying to describe it. This is a legacy file, and it's their sample tree. So I'll show you the form file problem. This is what the validator is complaining about. We're in a multimedia object subrecord, They're not using object on a zero line like they should be, but they don't have to if they don't want to. Specifications say you can do it this way, which is not my idea of what specifications are supposed to do. Specifications are supposed to say one way to do something specifically. That's why it's called specifications. That's why we have specifications. So we all do something the same way. If you ran your nuclear power plant on specifications that said, well, you could do this, or you could do that, or you could do the other, well, just do it what you want, and then if you don't like our tags, just make up your own. Well, all right, that nuclear power plant is going to have some bad luck somewhere down the road. Now here, file is supposed to be a 3-line, but it's supposed to be directly subordinate to the object line, which it actually is, but form is supposed to be 4-line subordinate to the file line, and this will not import at all. I found a similar problem in a different vendor doing the same thing. Let's validate one more and then we'll stop on that and do an export real quick before we close. Let's browse for another one that doesn't work. Roots Magic, I had all kinds of problems. That's why I have one called Roots Magic and one called Roots Magic Fixed, because I had to go through the GEDCOM file and delete, literally delete all kinds of stuff that was wrong. I don't know why. To actually import, I had to fix it and delete a whole bunch of tags that were wrong. There you go. That's Roots Magic now, 5.5.1 UTF-8. Out of 985 lines, we have 67 custom tags. Okay, now this is a bad problem. There's a pointer, which is kind of like a foreign key. It's a lot like a foreign key in a database, but it has no primary key, has no identifier. There is no individual 3, there is no individual 4, and there is no individual 5, and there is no Note 64 record in this GEDCOM file. So that's not going to import. It's going to be problem. They got the same problem with file and form, I think, as that legacy we just looked at. Here's a case where the actual validator is wrong. This is something that I do in my export. I use even for all events and attributes because I can, and that's the right way to do it. I don't care what the specifications say, but the specifications do say that you can have a third element on the line after even, and here this guy has, the person who wrote this validator, which is a good validator, I like it, has made a mistake and missed something that's in the specifications. Yes, you can put details about the event on that even line. I should just call it event, you know? Even. When I see even, I think odd. Of course, I think odd about lots of stuff, but so anyway, this is wrong. And so there'll be a whole bunch of these if we validate a file exported by Treebard. Let's do that right now and I'll show you. We'll get a whole bunch of these because all my events are done as even instead of resi and DEAT for death and BIRT for birth. We'll export from Treebard and then we'll validate the exported file here, and you'll see all kinds of these. But I'll show you the actual file too. We'll run Treebard. And we're going to select an existing tree to export. Let's use a sample tree. Now let's export that. It's done. That's how long it takes. This is the Treebard sample tree, which I just exported to GEDCOM. It's got a timestamp on it, so each one will be different if I make a bunch of them. And this has 1,481 lines. It has no blank space after the last line, which is correct. All these others are incorrect in that respect. Maybe they're do it for a reason. I don't know. We do not cut the lines at 60 or 80 or anything like that. We cut them like around 248, which is better because it's faster. This is not supposed to be easy for a person to read. It's supposed to be easy for a computer to read. And if you have less concatenating to do, that's good. This is how this is supposed to be. You got your file is directly subordinate to your object, and your form, which is the same as this, so why do they even do it? I don't know, but is supposed to be directly subordinate to the file, and that's correct here. And we're also doing this as a zero, as a real record, not as a subordinate to something else. So each media object has its own ID number. We're doing names as GEDCOM prescribes. We're doing everything as GEDCOM prescribes. There are 0 custom tags in this file, 0. There's the name of the submitter. There's the submitter record. There's only one. There's only supposed to be one. There is the reference to the submitter. This is our minimum head 5.5.1 UTF-8. I think I'm using UTF-8. I don't know anything about it. I'm doing the names right. Each name of this individual uses its own name tag. This was his ID number in prison. He stole a clarinet. Nickname, bad spelling, alternate spelling. There's your places. This is where I took my Treebard places, Unijet's places, and dumbed them down to work as GEDCOM places. Yes, it was painful, but I did it. Every single event in my export file is done with an EVEN tag, and here is a type. They're all done the same way, and I do not use fact for attributes. I don't use the fact tag. I use even for everything, and I do all of them exactly the same way. That makes the code much simpler. It's simpler to import and it's simpler to export. And then this is a detail about the event, which is legal here according to specifications. And if it's legal, then by golly, it's encouraged. Not a bad idea. I mean, it's definitely not GEDCOM's worst idea. In fact, it's good for there to be 3 items on every line, and obviously there's not. There should be, but GEDCOM's not designed that way. Okay. I had to deal with that quite a bit. I was dealing with it more yesterday, or was that was today? The GEDCOM has 2 items on this line, 3 items on this line, 3 items on this line, and some of the 0 note lines you could have 4 items. It's just, it's like, oh, it's so arbitrary. I'm going to validate this file and let's see what inline.ged or whatever it's called .com has to say about it. These are the things that it complains about. These are wrong. I believe it's because GEDCOM says the maximum length of a file name is supposed to be 30 characters, and that's the whole path. ged-inline.org is not wrong. This is a case where GEDCOM is wrong. The specifications are wrong. You can have a whole path in 30 characters, but you can't have that as a limit. That's absurd, completely ridiculous, and it's just wrong. Here's a case where the GEDCOM is out of date. They never heard of PNG back when they were making the specifications. What was it, 25 years ago? Because they didn't update 5.5.1 for over 20 years. So back then, what's PNG? Well, they never heard of it, but no, it's not wrong. This is wrong. Actually, I have no idea why they're complaining about this. Here, they don't use AD in the specifications. We could argue about that. The validator is wrong in this case. It's complaining about all these event tags that have a 3rd item. It's in the specifications. It's not that hard to find. I could change that, I suppose, say foster instead of fostering. Number of lines with user-defined tags 0. I spent weeks and weeks handling custom tags in my code when the project was called GEDCAM-do. GED could do, but GED burned out. We were on that last straightaway, finishing up the import program. I called it GEDCAM-do at the time. On the last straightaway, I could see ahead of me about 2 feet. It was not straight. It was very foggy, and it was going to be a problem to finish it. So didn't finish it, started over. And this time I said, okay, no custom tags, 0. I'm not going down that blind alley again. I'm not here to prove that GEDCOM can be useful. I'm here to prove that I can use GEDCOM to a reasonable degree. The rest of the stuff, when this is finished, will be in the exceptions report, and it will be easy enough to put the good stuff into Treebard manually and ignore the rest. I just said when the import program is finished, okay, it's what I call a finishable import program. It does a lot I showed you this, that, and the other thing. It's not perfect yet. It still has at least one problem that I know about. I just found out about while you're looking. So it's finishable. I may not finish it right now. Somebody else can finish it because all my code is open source, free, public domain. And it's all online right now. All my code is right here. It's all up to date. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.